Even as night settles fully over the fjord, not all light disappears from the settlement. Along the shoreline, a handful of lanterns still burn, their warm glow flickering gently against timber walls and weathered docks. While most homes have grown quiet, a different rhythm continues here. The rhythm of hands at work. The boat that carried you across the fjord now rests moored beside the dock, its hull rocking softly against the tide. From this quiet vantage, you begin to notice movement near the water's edge. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. A pair of figures work beside an overturned vessel, pulled partly onto the shore. Its curved wooden ribs catch the lantern light, revealing fresh repairs along the hull where new planks have been carefully fitted into place. One worker kneels near the keel, running a hand slowly along the grain of the wood. Not searching for flaws, but listening through touch, feeling where the surface remains rough or uneven. A small carving blade rests nearby, its edge catching a thin line of firelight as it waits to be used again. Beside him, another worker guides a wooden peg into place with soft, measured taps from a mallet carved of dense pine. Each strike is gentle, more coaxing than force, allowing the new timber to settle naturally into the vessel's frame. The sounds are quiet, rhythmic. Wood meeting wood. Tools touching grain. Lantern flames stirring in the night air. Further along the dock, another craft unfolds. Lengths of rope stretch between upright posts, their fibers pale against the darkness. A woman works patiently there, twisting fresh strands together to strengthen a fishing line worn thin by salt and strain. Her hands move with practiced calm, drawing, turning, tightening, the rope thickening gradually beneath her fingers. At her feet lie coiled nets awaiting repair. Some have been patched already, their woven knots darker where new fiber has replaced the old. Others remain spread across the dock like resting webs, their shapes rising and falling softly with the movement of the night wind. From time to time she pauses, not from fatigue but to study the tension of the fibers, ensuring each strand will hold against the pull of tomorrow's catch. Further inland, near a sheltered workshed built from overlapping timber planks, another glow burns steadier and brighter. Here the air smells faintly of smoke and heated iron. Inside, a blacksmith works alone beside a compact forge. The fire burns low, not the roaring heat of weapon crafting or heavy forging, but a quieter, more controlled flame used for shaping tools essential to daily life. A narrow iron rod rests across the embers, warming slowly until its surface begins to glow a muted orange. When ready, the smith lifts it carefully with tongs, guiding it onto a small anvil stone worn smooth by years of use. The hammer falls in slow intervals. Measured. Patient. Each strike shapes rather than forces, bending metal gradually into the form of a fishing hook or fastening nail. Between strikes the smith pauses, allowing the iron to cool slightly, listening to its tone, adjusting pressure with careful awareness. The sounds drift outward into the night. Soft hammer against metal. Fire shifting within the forge. The quiet breath of someone long accustomed to working in stillness. Across the settlement, these pockets of craft and repair continue quietly, not urgent, not hurried. Night is often the time for such work. When fishing boats are docked. When travel has ceased. When tools worn by the day's labor can be restored by lantern light before morning returns. Above them all, the aurora drifts slowly across the sky, its pale currents reflecting faintly on the fjord's surface and along the polished edges of wood and iron alike. The workers rarely look up. Their focus rests within their hands, within the grain of timber, the tension of rope, the glow of iron shaped for tomorrow's needs. In this quiet continuation of craft, the settlement breathes softly, sustained not only by travel and harvest, but by the patient work that keeps each vessel seaworthy, each net strong, each tool ready for the coming day. Closer to the water's edge, where the fjord breathes softly against the timber docks, the quiet work of net-making continues beneath the lantern glow. Here the rhythm is slower still, more patient, more intricate, shaped not by hammer or blade, but by fingers and fiber. Large fishing nets lie stretched between wooden posts driven deep into the shoreline. Their forms hang like woven shadows against the night, rising and falling gently with each passing breeze. From a distance they appear complete, but up close time and tide reveal their wear. Strands have thinned where salt water has eaten at their strength. Knots have loosened under the strain of heavy catches. Small tears ripple outward where fish once struggled within their woven confines. Seated beside one such net, a craftswoman works steadily beneath a lantern's steady flame. A bundle of fresh fiber rests beside her, pale, coarse strands drawn from flax and animal sinew prepared earlier in the day for this quiet repair. She selects a length carefully, running it between her fingers to test its strength before weaving it into the net's structure. Her hands move without hesitation. Threading. Looping. Pulling each knot tight with measured tension. The work requires neither speed nor force, only precision and familiarity built over seasons spent mending the tools that sustain the settlement. Beside her, a wooden shuttle rests across her lap, its carved edges worn smooth by repeated use. She guides it through the net's open lattice, feeding fiber through each measured gap before tightening the weave with a practiced twist of her wrist. The lantern light catches the fresh strands as they are drawn into place, their pale color standing briefly against the darker, salt-stained fibers surrounding them. Over time, the repaired sections will weather and blend, becoming indistinguishable from the rest. Further along the dock, another pair of workers tend to heavier rope lines used to secure boats against shifting tides. These ropes are thicker, their fibers dense, braided from plant cordage reinforced with animal hair and sinew for strength. One end is anchored to a dock post, while the loose strands stretch outward across a wooden frame. The workers stand opposite one another, twisting separate bundles slowly before guiding them together into a single unified line. Their movements are synchronized. Twist. Pull. Settle. Each motion tightens the rope's core, increasing its strength against the strain of wind and water. From time to time they pause, running their palms along the length to feel for uneven tension or weak points within the braid. Where flaws appear, they unwind the fibers gently and begin again. There is no rush in this work. Rope that fails at sea risks more than lost cargo. It threatens vessels, livelihoods and lives alike. Nearby, completed lines are coiled carefully upon the dock. Their circular forms rest like sleeping serpents beside moored boats, ready to be cast again when needed. Further inland, near the drying racks built from upright timber poles, freshly repaired nets hang stretched wide to air. Their damp fibers catch the fjord's cool night wind, releasing the lingering scent of salt and brine gathered from earlier voyages. Lanterns placed at intervals cast long shadows through the mesh, creating shifting patterns across the ground as the nets sway gently in the dark. Occasionally, a worker steps back to study their work from a distance. Not admiring, but assessing. Ensuring balance within the weave. Confirming that weight will distribute evenly when lowered again into the fjord's depths. The care invested here reflects the settlement's quiet understanding that survival rests not only in fishing skill but in the strength of the tools that make such work possible. Above them, the aurora continues its slow passage, pale ribbons drifting beyond the mountain ridges, reflected faintly in the still water below. The workers rarely notice. Their world in these hours is contained within rope tension, knot placement and fiber strength. In the slow turning of hands beneath lantern light, the tools of tomorrow's labor take shape, prepared carefully so that when dawn returns, boats may depart once more with confidence in the craft that supports them. And as the nets sway gently in the night wind and the ropes settle into their finished coils, the quiet industry of the fjord continues, steady, patient and unseen by most who sleep within the settlement's sheltered homes. Further within the settlement, beyond the shoreline docks and craft sheds, the rhythm of work continues inside the warmth of timber homes. Here the sounds of hammer and rope give way to softer movements, quieter forms of craft shaped by fiber, cloth and patient hands. Within one longhouse the hearth burns low but steady at the center of the room, its embers glowing beneath a careful layer of ash. The fire's warmth spreads outward through the timber structure, softening the chill that lingers in the night air beyond the walls. Lantern light hangs from a wooden beam overhead, its flame steady and golden. Beneath its glow, wool has been gathered into woven baskets, thick bundles of pale fiber sheared from sheep during the warmer months, and stored carefully until needed. A woman sits beside the hearth, a spindle resting lightly between her fingers. With practiced motion she draws a small length of wool from the bundle and begins to spin. The spindle turns slowly, suspended by gravity as her hand guides the twisting fibers into thread. The movement is steady and unhurried. Draw, twist, release. Each repetition transforms loose wool into a single continuous strand, thin, strong and ready for weaving. The spindle's rotation creates a quiet rhythm, its wooden shaft turning in smooth circles, while the forming thread lengthens gradually. Nearby, skeins of completed yarn hang draped across a drying frame, their soft loops catching the firelight in warm tones of ivory and ash gray. Across the room, a loom stands anchored against the timber wall. Its vertical frame is tall but unobtrusive, constructed from sturdy beams joined with wooden pegs. Threads stretch tightly from top to bottom, forming the warp through which softer strands will be woven. Seated before it, another craftswoman works with calm concentration. A wooden shuttle rests in her hand, wound with spun wool thread. She guides it through the warp in measured passes, left to right, then right to left, building the fabric slowly, line by line. Each completed pass is secured with a gentle press of the loom's comb, tightening the weave into place. The process is methodical, unrushed. The sound it creates is soft, the slide of wood, the tightening of fiber, the faint creak of the loom's frame settling with each movement. Cloth grows gradually beneath her hands. A heavy textile intended for winter cloaks, thick enough to shield against wind, yet flexible enough for daily wear. Beside the loom, folded garments await repair. Cloaks worn thin along the shoulders, tunics patched at the elbows, woolen blankets mended where threads have frayed. A bone needle rests atop the pile, threaded with dark yarn. From time to time the spinner sets aside her spindle to assist in these repairs, guiding needle through cloth with slow, careful precision. Each stitch restores strength to garments relied upon through long seasons of cold and travel. The work continues in companionable quiet. Conversation is unnecessary. The presence of shared labor offers its own comfort. Occasionally, one of them glances toward the hearth, adjusting a log, stirring embers, ensuring warmth remains steady through the hours ahead. Above, smoke escapes slowly through a narrow roof vent, drifting upward into the cold night air beyond. The scent of wool, wood smoke and warmed timber fills the interior, a grounding blend that speaks of shelter and continuity. Outside, the fjord rests in still darkness. Inside, thread becomes cloth, fiber becomes warmth, and patient hands shape the materials that will protect the settlement when winter winds return. And as the spindle turns, and the loom continues its steady rhythm, the quiet craft of textile work unfolds, soft, methodical and timeless beneath the glow of the northern hearth. Not all craft within the settlement requires fire, forge, or loom. Some work unfolds in quieter corners, shaped only by wood, blade, and patient hands. Near the outer edge of the longhouse, where lantern light fades into softer shadow, a solitary craftsman sits upon a low wooden stool. Before him rests a block of pale timber, freshly cut and still carrying the scent of forest resin. The piece is small, no larger than the length of his forearm, but it holds purpose within its grain. A carving knife moves slowly across its surface. The blade does not cut deeply. Instead, it shaves thin curls of wood that fall gently to the floor beside his feet. Each movement is careful, measured not by speed but by feel. The craftsman pauses often, turning the wood in his hands, studying its shape in the lantern glow before guiding the blade once more. Gradually the form begins to emerge. A tool handle, shaped to fit the palm comfortably. Perhaps for a net needle, or a small hammer, or a fishing hook frame used to secure line while working. Beside him lie other completed pieces. Smooth handles stacked neatly. Wooden pegs carved for boat repairs. Small wedges used to tighten planked hull seams against winter swelling. Each piece is simple in form, but essential in purpose. A rough tool slows work. A poorly shaped handle strains the hand. So time is taken here in the quiet hours, to ensure each object will serve its role without flaw. Nearby, another worker sands a wooden oar blade. Its broad surface rests across his knees, while a strip of coarse hide is drawn slowly across the grain. The motion is repetitive, forward, back, forward again, smoothing imperfections left from earlier carving. The goal is not beauty, but balance. An uneven oar strains the shoulders during long passages between fjords. A well-shaped blade moves through water with less resistance, conserving strength for journeys that may last hours or days. Wood dust gathers lightly across the floorboards, glowing faintly where lantern light touches it. The scent of fresh timber mixes with smoke drifting from the hearth, a grounding warmth that fills the interior air. Further along the wall, thin wooden rods are being shaped into fishing floats. Each piece is carved slender, then wrapped with treated fiber to prevent water absorption. Once complete, they will drift upon the fjord surface, small markers guiding fishermen to their submerged lines at dawn. The work remains quiet throughout. Blades whisper across grain. Hide smooths wood. Hands turn each piece slowly in the light. No voices rise above the low crackle of the hearth fire. This is work done at the edge of sleep, tasks that require focus but not urgency. Gradually, tools are set aside. Finished pieces are gathered into small bundles. Wood shavings are brushed gently into a basket to be used later as fire kindling. The lantern flame is lowered slightly, its glow softening further as the final hours of craft come to a close. Outside, the fjord remains still beneath the drifting aurora. Inside, the last motions of the night's labor fade, replaced slowly by the quiet stillness that settles when hands finally come to rest. As the final tools are set aside and the last curls of wood are gathered from the floor, the quiet labor of the settlement begins to settle into stillness. Lantern flames are lowered one by one. Not extinguished entirely, but softened, their glow reduced to conserve oil through the remaining hours of night. Along the shoreline, the figures who worked beside boats and nets withdraw gradually toward their homes. Footsteps sound lightly across timber docks before fading into the earth-packed paths between longhouses. Ropes now rest coiled. Nets hang repaired and ready. Tools shaped for tomorrow's work lie bundled neatly within sheltered sheds. The fjord reflects it all in calm silence, lantern light stretching in thin golden lines across the dark water before dissolving into shadow. Inside the longhouses, hearth fires are tended carefully for the night. Logs are shifted. Embers are spread. Flames are lowered until warmth remains without excess light. The glow they cast is softer now, more ember than flame, flickering gently against timber beams overhead. Those who spun wool and wove cloth earlier have gathered their work. Folded textiles rest beside looms. Spindles lie still where thread once turned. Bone needles are placed carefully into small wooden cases to await morning repairs. Gradually, movement fades from these spaces. Cloaks are drawn close. Bed furs are settled. Breath slows within the warmth of shared shelter. Beyond the walls, the fjord continues its quiet vigil. Boats drift gently where they are moored, rising and falling in slow rhythm with the tide. Repaired ropes hold firm against dock posts. Drying nets sway faintly in the cold night air. Above it all, the aurora moves in pale silence, its soft currents drifting beyond the mountain ridges before fading slowly toward the horizon. The settlement now rests fully, its work complete, its tools prepared, its vessels ready for the journeys and labors that will return with dawn. And in the deep quiet that follows, broken only by water against wood and the distant whisper of northern wind, the fjord holds the stillness of night, calm, patient, and undisturbed beneath the drifting lights of the northern sky.